Hello, everybody. Welcome again. I hope you had a great lunch. We would like to continue with our next panel, which is, as we heard previous talks, a very important one. It's about the ecosystem point of view, because it needs a whole ecosystem in order to raise a spin-off, like it takes a village to raise a child. So we have very interesting representatives of the Bulgarian innovation ecosystem here on the panel, as well as online. We have Vladimir Tomov, who is a CEO of Bright and the automotive cluster. We have Stoyan Yordanov, postdoctoral researcher at the Istituto Italiano di Tecnologia. Andreas Maia, founder of Industry Association Digital Bulgaria, and our Grand Dame of Ecosystems, Christina Eskenazi, in her role of a member of the steering committee of the Bulgarian Innovation Forum.
Great, thank you. my other hat.
So we will start with the online presentation from Mr. Stanislavov. Are we ready to start it?
Hello, do you hear me?
Great. I will ask the technical team to upload the video and to showing Vladimir Stanislav also. Okay, great. Hi, Vladimir. Fantastic to see you, this time online, but next time, as you know, no skipping plan, only on live. So it's a pleasure to being here with us. And I'm sure that we are expecting to understand more about the Bulgarian Employers Association for Innovative Technology, and of course, the best know-how coming from the automotive cluster as an example for very strong ecosystem in Bulgaria.
Hello, I hope you hear me. I'm very far away on the other side of the Atlantic. Do you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So I don't know where to start. Maybe Christina can help me, because she's also one of the most active members of the Bright organization. But yes, this is true. We had, I think, 3 years ago already, we had decided that the new industry, the modern industry, the software industry, the automotive industry, biotechnologies, the technologies for new kind of energies, and so on and so on, many of them, so 28 different organizations we had joined, and we had created the Bright organization. So of course we went through many different situations, fighting to establish those kind of businesses, but I believe we already succeed, because all of the existing employers organizations are now trying to partner, to work with us. So the innovative industries are already recognized as one of the most important industries for the future development of the country. Of course, for me, it's a bit easier to talk about the automotive industry, as I am associated with this industry for the last many years, probably 20 years. The automotive cluster itself, we found 10 years ago. This year is our 10th anniversary. And the truth is that when we started, it's a typical startup or typical spin-off, it doesn't matter how you call it. Nobody had believed. So basically everybody was thinking that it's impossible that there will be an automotive industry in Bulgaria. And we tried to discuss with many different people. And in the beginning, everybody was really pessimistic, thinking that this industry can develop only in countries like Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, of course, Slovakia, which is the the world champion in the Guinness Book in terms of percentage from the GDP. They have 67% from their GDP coming from the automotive industry. But slowly, what happened that more and more companies start to come. We start building ecosystem. And now I believe that Bulgaria already has a very, very good ecosystem, especially in the field of the new automotive technologies, meaning automotive software, technologies for autonomous driving, and of course, last but not least, is technologies for electric vehicles. Already a lot of components or software for electric vehicles is produced here in Bulgaria. And this is what where we are different from the rest of the countries in Eastern Europe. And it's true also that we had started between 10 and 15 years behind some of the leading East European countries. But now slowly Bulgaria is becoming a hub for developing an automotive software. Actually, during the weekend, there was a very huge covering in the media about that, because already one of the biggest companies is considering opening a software division in Bulgaria. And already it's not a secret that Daimler, basically the leading automotive company, has opened their subsidiary called Ambition for developing automotive software. So yes, currently Bulgaria has a very good automotive ecosystem. Actually, our neighboring countries like Greece, for example, but not only, several times has pointed that they don't have so well developed ecosystem, so they have to learn from Bulgaria. So this is something where we are, I believe, leading the region, of course, together with Romania. Romania has a bit different specifics, so not so much into the automotive software, more into the hardware, but Romania is also very strong into the automotive industry. I don't know where to go from there. Maybe Christina, you can help me a little bit with Bright.
I wanted to ask also, do you want to say something about Bright?
I think one question, because
yes, my question was as Bright is a general ecosystem about of innovative stakeholders, and by definition, an ecosystem is connected not only to the business but also to academia, government, investors, and other important stakeholders. As we are speaking here about increasing the number of spin-offs in Bulgaria and increasing the awareness of spin-offs, especially when we talk about university spin-offs, how do you see the situation now, and how can we increase these numbers and also the awareness, especially from the university spin-offs to connect more with business? What is the situation now, and how can we improve it, even if it's okay, or in general, how can we increase?
Thank you for the question. This is probably one of the most important points, talking about spin-off or startups, not only for the automotive industry, for all of the innovative industries. So yes, we had started even before the universities. So the dual education, I would say that the leading industry in Bulgaria working with the dual education in the middle schools is the automotive industry. But I'm coming for you live now from United States, where this is done as a state of the art. And in Bulgaria, we are cooperating very closely with the Technical University in Sofia, with the other technical university like the one in Ruse, Plovdiv, and some of the other universities. But I would say that there is a lot to be done there. Still, there is the cooperation is not close enough, so we need to work more the business with the universities, where basically the innovations will be born. And especially talking about automotive industry, I would say that the leading country in that thing is even not United States, it's Israel. You know, the most successful spin-off from the automotive industry was born there. It's called Mobileye. And today, I would say 9 of 10 vehicles has their system for assisted driving in their cars. And this is a project which started as a university project with funding of $40,000 and later was sold to Intel for 16.7 billion euro. So, of course, in Bulgaria, we are still far away from things like that. But already the universities are good enough. They have a very good basis. They have a lot of technology. So our university, I would say, are not, they are basically rich organizations. And now we need to go into the next phase. And the next phase would be where the universities will cooperate more closely with the business. There will be a lot of projects in between them. We are already having one such project, for example, the automotive cluster in the northwestern part of Bulgaria, which won a special award. So this is developing, but definitely not with the speed that we need. And in the future, this is one of the most important things, because take into consideration one vehicle, for example. Currently, already more than 50% of the cost of this vehicle is due to the software and the electronics inside the vehicle. And in the near future, I would say 5 to 8 years, more than 50% of that cost will be only the software. So this is the most valuable part of the vehicle of the future. And over there, I believe we can do a lot, but we need to work together with the universities, especially when we are talking, for example, about electric vehicles. Then the chemistry is the most important part of the vehicle, because the battery is the most expensive part of the vehicle. So we are working with the universities, but we need to do more I would say, from both sides, the business and the universities themselves.
Yes, thank you for that. I think it's a very thin line, basically, between university and the business, because on the one hand, the university has to have the freedom to do research by the power of science. On the other hand, it has to keep the connect to the business world in order to stay relevant for society. So it's a very interesting exchange here, and we will also take a closer look at it. Now, we would like to open also the panel, maybe with a short introduction from myself, and let's continue with the same question about how the ecosystem can support and increase the number and the quality of spin-offs.
To start.
Okay.
Andy,
okay.
go.
Just to introduce my person, I'm Andreas Meyer. I'm the founder of several IT companies in Bulgaria and Industry Association Digital, which is an organization which aims at helping companies to digitalize, SMEs mainly, to digitalize. We are a fairly large employer, and we see the need to, I will make this as a statement first, because the discussion on doing spin-offs either by the company side, which is easier, and the university side, you're getting a lot into mentality, you're getting a lot into education, and the education, however, doesn't start at university level. Then it's actually too late. You're trying to form something. You cannot form 25-year-olds. You have to start. We Germans, we believe that up to 7 years you can form people. So you have to start from the kindergarten level and up to change a society to be innovative and responsible and progressive. So also before we start funding things, we have to change legislation, we have to change law, employment, tax. Yeah, everybody talks about 10% flat tax rate, but the hurdles behind it. So there is a lot of extent to spin-off and innovation, and which form of innovation. And one of the questions maybe I could ask Lubomir is which part of the automotive industry at the moment uses innovative technology developed in Bulgaria. Software is not necessarily an innovation, because if you base the tech on something which is coming abroad, then it's not necessarily innovation, right?
Yeah, you want me to answer now? Yeah, the universities were very, very important partner of us. I would say, for example, without the Technical University in Sofia, we would never be able to attract Bosch to create the Bosch Automotive R&D Center in Sofia, which is now developing with unprecedented speed. And they are currently leading the so-called interior autonomous driving program of the whole Bosch company. So this is a very, very good example of innovations which are created jointly by a private company, and they came because they saw that there is potential in the Sofia Tech University. At the moment, we are trying to do the same. Of course, we are in an early stage, working with the Bulgarian Science Academy connected with the chemistry of the batteries, which is the billion-dollar question. So there are a lot of opportunities, but yes, I do agree that the academic world in Bulgaria is a bit slow. We don't have so much traditions like for example, here in the USA, yesterday I understand that there is a company called Amazon Science. So basically they have created their own science institute, and a lot of scientists are jumping from the traditional university ecosystem to this company now at the moment, because they want to do cutting edge technologies.
Okay, I will pass this on because I'm going to talk for the next 20 minutes. Direct speak.
So my name is Vladimir Tomov. I'm a researcher in the Italian Institute of Technology, and this event is really nice because it helps and improves the communication between different parts of the ecosystem. So on the question how we can improve this ecosystem further, I will start with this. When I was a student almost 20 years ago, I realized that if we don't have a strong industry in Bulgaria, we cannot have strong science, because industry has resources, and it's also one of the factors in the world who helps and invests in science. So at some point, after a lot of talks with different people from academia, industry, investors, I realized and condensed an idea I called Bulgarian Technological Institute, that it can be seen as a joint venture between industry and academia to have an institute which is focused on producing and developing working technologies which leads either to commercialization or like patents, startups, or the like. And of course, 50% of the time is also dedicated to pure science, because both are connected. If you know about Fraunhofer institutes in Germany or Italian Institute of Technologies, they use a similar model. But here, I'm thinking about what we can improve further. We can integrate also concepts and remove weaknesses which they have, and get a structure which is like you take the best from academia and the best from industry and put it in one structure so that they work very, very close together. But it means the industry will have to fund this structure, not the government. So it will be like a privately owned institute. I don't know if it's possible to do this in Bulgaria, but this is what I do as a project in my spare time. Even today, I had a conversation with one of the company from your cluster, Visteon is called, also with some software companies, because they are mature enough to realize that working with knowledge, working with talents who uses this knowledge is the key to their success. And for example, I can give you an example. So we want to have a very strong ecosystem, then we need to jump directly into the cliff, which means jump directly into the big things. For example, can we develop a large-scale space program in Bulgaria, build rockets, launch satellites, missions to other planets, and so on? Because if Elon Musk wants to go to Mars, I want to go to other star systems using super light speeds traveling. And if you think it's not possible, it's possible theoretically. In 1994, scientists showed it possible, but it requires the environment. So such institute would be one of the factors in the environment, which also would help the universities, Bulgarian Academy of Sciences, and so on. The conversation is long, but yeah, this can be a good and nice start. Just making you aware of such possibility. I don't know if I have question to Ludmil. This is just a comment. I don't know. Yeah, if you understood my point.
If you allow me to add, of course, Visteon is the biggest R&D center in general in Bulgaria, with more than 1,000 engineers. One of the one of the projects we are trying to promote at Automotive Cluster for the last several years is the creation of a huge private R&D center, because also now the automotive industry is coming into the next phase with all of the autonomous driving features. So every car is basically drone. And now the security is something which is becoming very, very important. And if you want to work on the latest project together with international partners, then you have to have a specific standard. It's called TISAX. This is a standard for information security, and nobody in Bulgaria currently has. So the ecosystem you have to create, it's not only the people, it's the whole environment, including the building, the surrounding itself. And this is the way to go further, and we will be able to participate in some of the biggest projects in the automotive industry. Yes, I agree with you that the software is not an innovation by itself because it's a software, but one of the most important innovations of the future will come from the software industry. Doesn't matter it's automotive or other kind of industries.
On a research we did with Venres, which will come out soon, we analyzed a little bit the ecosystems in Germany, especially in Berlin and Munich, and which are quite, let's say, old ecosystem in terms of spin-off and technology transfer. And we found out that they adapt to the circumstances of time and stakeholders. So also in Bulgaria, maybe we have to focus on our strong points from an ecosystem view and adapt our models, of course, with best practices from international other ecosystems, but to adapt it to our own capabilities, own skills, and be active where we are strongest. Now, Christina, what is as I mentioned, the grand dame of Bulgarian ecosystem? What is your point of view?
Actually, it's a great opportunity discussing the Bulgarian ecosystem as the fundament of creation of a spin-off as a culture, and having so many international background, having you all next to this discussion, which is great, which means that there is a good know-how. There is a Bulgarian and foreigners which are actually passionate about Bulgaria and how to increase our result. I can share, of course, personal stories when I meet you all, starting with Stoyan, who is actually living abroad, but the passion for the Bulgaria is quite strong. He is a person who is having a strong communication with our Bulgarian diaspora, PhDs, scientists, Bulgarian, which are all over the world, and he making this connection, which is amazing. And for sure, we will support this project because I found it very interesting. Of course, Andy, when he's trying to explain the idea paid forward and how the ecosystem supposed to support each other, and the question from the audience was, okay, how much? Where are the money?
Yeah,
there is no money.
But Christina, before I go on, I want to reply something related to the Berlin ecosystem. An ecosystem is not feasible without legislative support and incentives. So before you create the legislation to support innovation, spin-offs, this entire ecosystem of doing something moving forward, you need the legislation and you need the support and you need the financials and. So as long as this is not bundled, You can talk about it, but you cannot implement it. So that's why our push goes towards the governments, and an unstable government situation is not helpful. So eventually you're just turning around in a circle and in a circle and in a circle, because you talk to new people all the time. And this is something we do in the course of Industry Association Digital. When we started with the previous government, even though we're a private organization, we're not bound to anything happening by the government. You still need some form of endorsement. You still need some form of a support and understanding that we're all moving in the same direction, because one party moves here, the other party moves there. So our approach as Industry Association Digital is strongly based on the model pay it forward. I, as a company, obviously I earn money out of out of what I do. And at some point you reach, you pay your taxes, you do whatever you need to do. But then you have a product, which IT product, for example, which doesn't cost you anything, to just give it out to companies to facilitate the digitalization. And there are plenty of such companies out there. Since we started, kicked off Industry Association Digital in Sofia on the 7th of June, with the support of then over 50 ministries and private organizations and associations and whatsoever. We already collected 50 million levs in value, which we can provide to organizations. In our organization specifically, there is no money involved. We don't collect any money. We don't get any funding to do it. It's a private initiative, just with the goal we have to overcome certain levels to bring people digitalization, which hardly a handful of people really understand. So this misbelief, a spreadsheet, this digitalization, I have a laptop, I'm digital, or I'm just receiving, somebody sold me an overpriced website, which has practically no visitors. This is digitalization. It's not. So we're talking about very advanced topics when we talk about spin-offs, when the majority of people, and please note that a very, very small percentage of innovation which can lead to a spin-off actually comes from university. If you see this on a European and a global level, in a less than 2-digit percentage level. So maybe, yes, we're focusing in the right direction, but the approach might not be perfect, because we need to take the industry along. We need to take SMEs along. We need to take those people along which have the ideas to create a spin-off, to develop something, and then we need the incentives for this to happen. And this comes from, well,
Yeah.
I don't mean God. I mean, it comes from the government.
I need to share about my hat in this panel because I have a lot. But of course, tomorrow we have more dedicated time over the European projects, over the European observation. We will go deeper in detail what's happened in labs, in business, what are the models, the ecosystem. But in this panel, I decided to represent very interesting also initiative, which is called Bulgarian Innovation Forum, which was inspired by your Commissioner Maria Gabriel March this year, in order to shortage this connection between the Bulgarian ecosystem and the possibilities that European Commission provides. We all know that so far the results were not on our side. So therefore we are trying to resolve them, to see what are the major problems that we have here, why the results are so bad for us, and of course how to increase our chances. The interesting part connected with Bulgarian Innovation Forum is actually that we discovering for really, let's say, a painful topic for our ecosystem. It's coming from us. And the thing is that those problems, those needs are very well covered by the new European Innovation Agenda, which was officially announced on 7th of July from Maria Gabriel. You remember that little bit in an hour ago, I asked specifically how actually the Bulgarian Innovation Agenda is combined with the European one, because inside we can see a lot of fantastic things. Of course, it is about regulation, how to motivate more and more companies to create the spin-offs and deep tech technology by providing them some taxation or with working and providing a good environment next to infrastructure, next to ecosystem, but also inside there is innovation valleys to promote and stimulate and to support the regions which are bad in result when it comes to innovation. And of course, female entrepreneurship. Tomorrow we'll have a dedicated panel. I'm quite passionate about it. Probably the only thing where Bulgaria is standing at the top is the good know-how and the good example, how many females are involved in tech and how much of them are actually succeed by having very strong startups. But this will be for tomorrow. The Bulgarian Innovation Forum, two more news. And of course, we're going back to discussion, having 4 working groups. Of course, the first of the working group is connected with one-stop shop. We understand and realize that it's very hard in Bulgaria to find one place for innovation, where you can meet people, when you can understand what happened in Bulgaria, and to have this source of information to support you. The second group, which I lead, is connected with deep tech education and, of course, talent, which is actually the biggest issue everywhere, not only in Bulgaria. And next to this group, I really appreciate, and I will really glad more and more people from our audience from this event to join, and of course to think how to shortage the process, how to stimulate more and more young people going on academic career. Because right now when I speak with the student, what do you think about academic career? They said, what? Why? Everybody to laugh at me. So we need to change. This is a culture. This is something that depends on us. And the last thing connected with the Bulgarian Innovation Forum on 26th of September, Maria Gabriel will, together with Bulgarian Innovation Forum, we are making a huge conference with directors of EIC, EIT program, Horizon, Digital Europe. So, of course, all of you will be sent invitation, and I hope some of the things and some of the outcome from today to be represented in front of the pages. I will be a moderator, of course, as usual in some of partially of the event. So any kind of a feedback that you can provide me, it is quite welcome. So yeah, okay.
Maybe a question to Stoyan from a researcher perspective. When you work in a university, how do you see and how do you connect with the surrounding ecosystem? That's like the first part of the question. And the second is a researcher more influenced by like the market or the ecosystem, investors, corporates, or is it more intrinsics? So the question is, do you take inputs from outside, or do you is it inside out or outside in more from a researcher perspective? Like, do you watch the market, or do you provide insights to the market and they should make products out of it?
Thank you for the question. So the answer, there's no one answer, depends on the place. There are places which works more closer with the industry, and there are places which are more focused on purely scientific part of the story. But in the context of Bulgaria, the problem is that in Bulgaria, we kind of lack the connection with the industry, while in other places they might have institutes more fundamental science, so not so much interaction with industry, but they also have institutes who interact with industry much stronger as well. But in Bulgaria, we lack this connection with the industry, I think, and it's good to develop in this direction. So yeah.
Thanks. With the time, I don't have one more question. Do you have one?
Okay, I have a question to you. What is the secret, most ingredients of creation of a successful startup, from what you know and from your experience, to all of you?
Okay, and such general question, sometimes it's difficult to answer what is the key to never give up. Even if your startup, whatever, doesn't matter what is does not work, just continue. You will, in the process, you will learn a lot. Even if the startup fails, actually many ideas on the way of running the startup will come up. So once, and sometimes which happened with me is that once you kind of like this, then it might be forever for you, although it's difficult. So the thing is that you must keep in mind that if you want to become entrepreneur, it means you must like pain, continuous pain and problems. So it's not for everybody. It's only for people that cannot imagine doing anything else. Otherwise, I would not recommend it.
So my answer is actually quite similar. Running a startup or starting a startup is not an 8-hour business. It's a 24-hour thing, and it should be your baby. And above all, don't burn money. Even if you get large funding, don't burn money. Don't get crazy. Start hiring all 100,000 types of people, which will cost you. You need the money away along the way. So start small, scale, and above all, build scalable things, but don't burn money at very early stages. That's deadly at the end.
Okay, Lubomir, what do you think? Which is the secret ingredient for the success of the spin-off?
It's a complicated question, so I don't have. It's a billion-dollar question actually. Maybe last thing from my side, the picture that you see behind me, this is basically a spin-off. This is spin-off from the university in Aachen in Germany, which is one of the most active universities in the field of automatization. So this project was created by the university with an idea from one of their leading professors, how they can improve and, of course, make it much more efficient and with less investment, the traditional automotive factory. And this render behind me is the render of the factory in Lovech for the electric vehicles. And this is a very, very typical spin-off. Of course, this company went through many different problems, issues. But yes, I agree with Stoyan that whoever is starting a startup company must be ready for a complicated situation. And yes, this is definitely not 8-hour working day. It's even, I would say, more than 24 actually.
Great. And Kalian, the question is to yours.
Yes, successful startups or spin-offs, of course, a very difficult question. We know all the answers, like funding is needed, the team is very important, the product market fit has a huge importance, timing, you can be too early, you can be too late. Also, it can be like global developments can influence it. But I think also a key question as a sociologist is like, how do you define success? Of course, because nowadays more green startups come, more social startups, social businesses. So the definition of success also switch for the new generation, work-life balance. And if you think of the academic world, I spoke with a scientist a few days ago, and they said the scientists sometimes they don't measure success. Like if you told him about Bill Gates, he more relates to, he or she of course more relates to Marie Curie or Newton than Elon Musk or Bill Gates. So everybody has different currencies of success. So it's really depends on the definition. So not the economic growth or value is not always the only success factor.
I see a lot of content for the next edition of Spinoff. So thank you. Big applause for our amazing speakers. Several times we share about that one of the secret ingredient of a successful startup is connected with academia. I want to invite Dimitar Nikolov, who will support me in this hard process of moderating probably the most hard panel, which is connected with the university. Come join with me, Dimitar. And take your seat, of course. I
Thank you,
want to
Christina.
invite on the stage also Professor Dr. Victoria Serafian from Medical University in Plovdiv. Professor Serafian. Okay. I want to invite Svilen Kanev, who is assistant professor from University of Russe. Please join us on the stage. And Georgi Georgiev from American University in Bulgaria. I think that to seeing a young student among this discussion is something amazing. Online together with us will be Professor Georgi Tudorov, who is the Dean of the Faculty of Industrial Technology next to Technical University, and Juan Garcia, MBA, who is the Director of BBI Cambridge, Barcelona. So, Dimitar, let's take the seat. We will start, of course, with the ladies. And not only, but the medicine and medical university in Bulgaria, it is passion of mine. As chair of the Health and Life Science Cluster Bulgaria, I can point as a good example, very bright scientists connected with medicine, who actually is quite inspirational. And Professor Serafian, it's my honor to know her. So Professor Serafian, it will be great to share with us about your activities and of course how the university supporting the spin-off. Is there some obstacles?
Thank you. First of all, as a medical biologist, I was fascinated to hear how eagerly all of you used medical and biological terms like ecosystem, taxonomy, synergy. All that shows that business is moving towards life sciences and medicine. Next, I really liked very much was the title of the panel, discussing the secrets of success. It is well known that if you are well prepared, hardworking, if you have a clear vision, and if you learn from your failures, at the end you get your successful story. So at the Medical University of Plovdiv, we have all of that, including the failures. And here are the problems. Unlike other universities, like the technical ones or the comprehensive universities, the medical universities are under double management and jurisdiction. First comes the Ministry of Education and Science that pushes us to do research, that's great, to create spin-offs, very nice, but not so easy. And next comes the Ministry of Health that has its legislation, very strict requirements for access to patients and healthcare. So if we have a bright research project, we can develop and run great experiments in our labs, but the final point is the patient. In order to get to the patient, you need his informed consent, the consent of the clinic he is treated in, and the hospital where this clinic is. Of course, you can have a number of other obstacles, and I can give you an example that we had a project, research project funded by the university to support a clinical department that uses an innovative technology for diagnostics requiring some fluorescent drugs. We bought these expensive drugs, the research project completed successfully, but at the end, there were some batches of that drug left unused. So the head of the clinic asked, can the university donate these drugs to the hospital? Of course we can, we did it with pleasure, but the hospital refused and rejected. Because the Ministry of Health requires every single drug used for patients in the hospital to be bought under tender procedures and to be bought by the hospital itself. So we lost money investing in these drugs, the patients lost the ability to be diagnosed using an innovative strategy, and the hospital lost because it has to invest its own money for something that we already have. Another problem is, for example, research in pharma industry. We have a very strong research departments at the Faculty of Pharmacy. Even creating an innovative strategy like drug delivery, such a university, a faculty, cannot compete with the big pharma, where, as we all know, billions of dollars and euros are invested. So it's not impossible, of course, but it's quite difficult, lacking the legislation and the synergy, let's use the term, between the two ministries that we are required to follow their instructions and their management. So that's the real problem that we all from medical universities face at this moment. Hopefully, things could go better if we all send our messages to the government and try to do something together, unite with other universities like the technical ones, and just going bypass strategy, let's say from the medical to the technical university, and that's how to build a spin-off, maybe. That's it.
Thank you, Professor Srapian. Very interesting topic where in Greece, actually, yeah, every university, every science having quite specific, and yeah, this is something that we're supposed to think how to resolve. Probably the government, the ecosystem, the universities. Still, I know that you're having a good relationship with the business. You stimulate a different project working on such international, and we were back to discussion on how to increase and how to stimulate more and more innovation on market. And also probably it will be interesting to share and to start discussing a little bit. I have a dream about cross technology innovation, medical university with engineers, with VR, etc., how it could be combined. Probably Dimitri want to share something?
Yes, I have a question to Professor Srapian. Thank you for the really interesting intro. And how do you see that the artificial intelligence improve not only the product, medicines and drugs, but the process of discovering that thing?
Oh, well, that's an issue that is really being discussed in recent years. And in terms of diagnostic processes, artificial intelligence is just being used now in most of the clinical departments, most of the softwares or the machines that we use for imaging, let's say, for cytology, for X-ray imaging and so on, MRI, they are based also on artificial intelligence, and that's the way we're moving forward. Of course, we lack this knowledge and education at the level of undergraduate training at medical schools. That's what we lack at the moment.
Do you see that there is a potential for a specialized research and education programs that are focused in AI and medical device to create a spin-off, with the potential to create a spin-offs? Because we see that a lot of universities hotspots of innovation in the big Beijing, Tel Aviv, San Diego, they have a strong universities with really specialized programs, and they result in creation a lot of spin-offs.
Yes, in terms of cross-connecting, as Christina said, between medical and technical or engineering faculties, but within a medical university, there is normally a place for such a faculty. It should be a comprehensive university as the others are, but inter-university networking would be great.
Thank you.
Right.
You're talking about artificial intelligence. It's time to invite additional person on the stage. This chair, sit down. I want to invite also Vladimir Tomov, who is a member of and co-founder of AI Questra Bulgaria, researcher in Technical University in Sofia, but also director of the very new established Institute for Quantum Technology in the AI Questra, because I'm sure that he will joining very interesting next discussion. So the next participants, Sme Financing. What about the Rusa University? Can you share with us what are the obstacles or the good example, know-how that is connected with creation of spin-offs?
Yes, thank you. Dear colleagues, my name is Sme Financing, and I'm associate professor in the University of Rusa, the Faculty of Business and Management, but also I'm in the Center of Entrepreneurship Support in the university and in our new scientific center, which is a shared scientific infrastructure 5G Alliance. It was funded by the National Program for Scientific Infrastructure. And this is the point that I can share some examples and some opinion. In our case, we try to benefit from some of our advantages of our university inside, like we just mentioned just in a minute, because in our internal structure, we have 8 faculties, half of them 4 are with engineering fields, and the other 4 are from non-engineering fields like the business, the law, pedagogical, and healthcare also. And this is the benefit. How can we create mutual innovations or mutual knowledge among the faculties and different expertise inside the faculties? By the way, I had maybe some slides. If you have some option to show some visual points. Yes, thank you. And 3 years ago, with the National Funding Initiative for the National Roadmap for Scientific Infrastructure, we made a project, the so-called 5D Alliance project, where we invited, yes, thank you very much, where we invited, just to see.
With the green bill.
Yes. We invited some of our traditional partners from Bulgarian universities and scientific units to build a shared knowledge infrastructure for innovations. We have, we have several national partners. Also, I'd like to thank among some of you that are present here, like Technical University Sofia, like universities from Varna, from Plovdiv, where we combined our efforts to work together. And what is the point here? To create several laboratories with specific knowledge and specific capacity to have innovational activities. By the way, on the picture, you can see the physical place for the laboratories. At the moment, it is under construction. In a few months, it is going to be ready and it will be announced. We invited 7 Bulgarian universities and 5 institutes of the Bulgarian Academy of Science, and we had some, let's say, a lot of associate partners, not only from Bulgaria, like we have some partners here in the room from some clusters, but also from other European countries and some of other European partners. Why we did that? Because we tried to combine the different support that we can suggest to spin-offs in one place. If I just go back in one slide, or I cannot go back, sorry. We try to combine the support for patenting, the support for startup building, creating the business model of the new company, especially this is the place for the center of entrepreneurship, and also the support of different innovational solutions that can be provided by the different labs in the different fields of knowledge from our university. Like, for example, in transport, in engineering, in medicine, in healthcare services, not specific medicine because we are not full faculty for healthcare, and or for other fields. And what we did is to try to foster local, and not only local, but different business representatives or companies to work together with us. The main point, or if I can say it in one word, could be the process of co-innovation, to make or to implement innovations together, and we try to have the place to do that. Like in the previous panel, some of the colleagues mentioned that there is a need of a place to do innovations. So we try to do that in our part of the country. Some colleagues call us the Bulgarian Danube University because we have 3 branches from Vidin to Silistra. And we try to cover that part of the country, working together with different companies. How can we work better together? If they can ask us for support, or if we can offer our expertise. And this is the place for the patenting office inside the structure, because we have a database with the patents that we have, and this is the direct offer to the companies to go to the place for commercialization of the innovations. Thank you. I think in the questions we can have.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of questions raising up. I'm curious, do you have a successful example for the spin-offs companies or cooperation with the business?
If I have to choose some example, yes, it was with one of your European projects that we had several years ago. But it was not a specific spin-off locally on the Bulgarian company. It was a spin-off through the consortium in the European Union. We combined the efforts of engineering thought with some of other faculties, and we made a robot which was called Rescuer, and it is foreseen to support in some emergency situations or some, let's say, military occasions. And this robot was bought by the American company. They started that business and then sold to the American army, but it's another case there.
Thank you.
I have a question. How do you connect with other scientific infrastructure in Bulgaria? A lot of Center of Excellence, Sofia Tech Park, and different universities. What are your connection? And may one use one infrastructure in Center of Excellence in Sofia, and then if needed the equipment and the expertise, use it in your scientific infrastructure?
Yes, thank you. The short answer, yes, it can be done, because we have the different access points of this scientific project infrastructure in the different universities that we have as our partners, and we exchange our needs. For example, if you have some specific need that we have the capacity to do it in our lab, you can do it with us, or vice versa. If we have to go to your lab, you can do it with you. This is the one point. Another point is that the different consortiums that we have with our partners in different initiatives are the other option for interaction. For example, that I saw from the agenda for today and tomorrow, representatives of different innovation hubs. This is another place, another platform for cooperation among the partners. And also the projects that we have when we apply for either national or international or European funding, also consortium with partners for specific problems or specific projects.
Thank you.
Okay, the next online, I think, is Vladimir Tomov from AI Quester. Not probably, I'm sure he's having actually a very good experience when it comes to a spin-off. So Vladimir, can you please share the good experience and what are the obstacles and probably some ideas how to improve? And when it comes to a technology like a quantum technology, what is the future? And is Bulgaria having actually some fundament of creation of a quantum spin-off companies?
Okay. Right. So My primary work is as a researcher in Technical University Sofia. We have a lab which is named Tele-Infrastructure Lab. The lab started 2014, and our goal was to make spin-offs. This was our primary goal. Now, almost 8 years later, we don't have a spin-off. It is a difficult task, but it is very likely that the stars will align next year and we will make a spin-off in the area of mixed reality. We'll see. But in the meantime, we work a lot with the industry, and we use the expertise that are related to telecommunications and machine learning, and we have maybe 5 now successful projects. Okay, we have one which is just a good example. We'll give you. We work with one huge Asian telecom company with 500 million users. We had to develop this algorithm to improve something. I cannot say what. Anyhow, but we also worked for German companies. We worked for European projects, and the small components that require advanced knowledge of algorithms and artificial intelligence, we provide it, and so far I might say we are successful. We recently decided to reduce a bit the work with the industry in order to focus more on the research aspect, because otherwise we are not a lab at the university. We are just one self-sustained company if we do not do research and do not publish papers. So we recently, as I mentioned, work a lot in this direction, but currently the research in the artificial intelligence is, I will use the word madness. For me, it's madness because I'm working in this since 2007. I was pretty young back then. But it is a flood of research papers, and you have to read and track it on a daily basis, which is something that I don't know if there is a single person or even a team of persons who can comprehend with this this knowledge. It's a bit scary, by the way. So anyhow, still the secret. As the previous panelist mentioned, the $1 million question, the secret recipe of a spin-off or startup is not known. It's not about the money. It's not about the people, but it's mostly both are important. But at the end, they are not important. It's not a straightforward answer. There is no straightforward answer. But that's why I mentioned if the stars align, whatever that means, it can happen. This is about the. I mean, there is a lot I can speak about how the research is helping the industry and how maybe a spin-off can happen. But I will say now a few words about the
I
new.
think Associate Professor Nicole Kevin, I see he's quite impatient to ask.
Krasimir, thank you for your answer. I just have one remark, and I would like to comment on that. I see artificial intelligence as a general purpose technology that applies a lot of different domains. How do you see how to create a spin? If you want to create a spin-off, which is the most important thing, domain knowledge or artificial intelligence knowledge? Because artificial intelligence by itself don't have a lot of things to do.
7 years ago, the knowledge about the artificial intelligence was more important. Now the domain knowledge is more important because the artificial intelligence, especially the neural networks, because there are many aspects of artificial intelligence. Let's say the neural networks are tools that you can easily step on and deliver technology in quite short amount of time. 10 years ago, that was not impossible. You need to you need to know statistics to do some good evaluation of your data set. You need to figure out how to build the model incrementally, including the different nuances, or as we call it, hidden variables, in order to build some intuition about the problem that you try to solve. And now you go online, you go online, find some good or some popular neural network. Okay, sit down for a couple of months, do something with your data, and it's working almost out of the box. It's so now the domain knowledge is more important, and in this sense, the data is more important.
Yeah.
The more data you have, the better. But still, you need some domain. For example, it's some story that was told to me. A company hired, I think it was in the insurance domain. A company hired a statistician to build a model of how they lend not lend, but how they lend the insurances, something like that. And they expected this person to sit down and start programming, etc. What he did was sit down and for a couple of months talking with everybody in the company.
I'm sure that discussion about the AI could be much longer, and I promise to make a special edition, of course.
I will be quick. Then for 1 week, this guy built the model, and it's working perfect. So now the domain knowledge is more important.
Thank you.
In short.
Great.
In short.
Talking about academy, the time is quite.
Okay, just a few words about so recently we started this as a part of AI Cluster Bulgaria, the Institute of Quantum Technologies, and we have two goals, at least in short term. The first one is to evaluate the ecosystem in Bulgaria and the persons and the researchers, if we can do some overall good research in this direction. And the other direction we will follow is to try to popularize this technology, because if we have now a quantum computing technology, I can guarantee you we don't need artificial intelligence. It is totally off the table, but we don't have yet this thing, and hopefully in the next 10 to 20 years we will have it on the table, and it will take over whatever then is the society.
For sure, a lot of events. I promise, as a PR, as a co-founder of AI Cluster, everybody will go in detail. Talking about academia, of course, one of the, let's say, the most certain integrants is the students. And of course, young, motivated people who are having this entrepreneurship spirit, and even after they graduate, they continue to support the university. So for me, it's a pleasure to say hi to Georgi Georgiev from New Bulgarian University, to sharing their know-how, how the students are getting involved next to academic work, and of course, what is the motivation and possibilities to create a spin-off. Yeah.
Great. Do you hear me well? Okay. Can I just get the clicker? And can we watch the presentation, please?
The technical team will the presentation.
Sorry? Okay.
The technical team just loading the presentation.
Okay, so I'm just going to start, and the presentation, I hope, is going to come in a bit. First of all, thanks for great it's here. Thanks for being here, and thanks for inviting me. I'm going to start with a small introduction about myself. I'm actually born in Burgas, and I'm very glad to see that such an event is happening here. After Burgas, I went to study in the American University in Bulgaria. I graduated with a double major of business administration and psychology. And after that, now I am one of the managing directors of Elevate AOBG for the 4th season. So, can we go to the next slide, please? Great. We believe that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. That's why we decided to give the AOBG students the opportunity to experience what is it to have your own startup. to see how challenging it is. But most importantly, to be able to take risks in a safe environment, to be able to take the risk of establishing their own startup in a safe environment. That's why AOBG Accelerator Program was created. It is a joint venture between the American University in Bulgaria and 11 Ventures, and supports AOBG students and alumni in establishing their own startup. Briefly, I'm just going to mention what the Startup Accelerator looks like for us. Basically, as I said, we support the student startup teams, first in developing their idea, after that in validating it, and after that, of course, potentially going on the market with it. We believe that entrepreneurship is best learned in practice. And no matter if your startup succeeds, if your idea makes it or not, the things that you have learned during this process, during such a program, will be a stepping stone for your future career and also for your future development. Hello. So how exactly do we make it? It is a 4-month program that students combine together with their education. We start in October, so now we are recruiting startup teams, and we have a lot of mentors, as well as we have a lot of weekly sessions in which such mentors are teaching the students and giving them advice and experience how exactly to make their startup and their idea work. Basically, usually we accept around 7 teams that get $2,000 initial investment with no strings attached. And after that, those teams compete for an additional funding of an investment pool of up to $30,000. This investment, the final investment, happens on our demo day, which is the final day of our presentation of our program. And then the student startup teams pitch and present what they have achieved. I'm just shortly going to give you some numbers about our program. So far, for the 3 seasons, we have raised 200,000 lifts. Those money are only for the purposes of the program and for investing in the teams. The teams have raised more than 150,000 lifts for their purposes. And we have so far 9 operational teams and of course, a lot of partnerships with the American University in Bulgaria, of course, with 11 Ventures, with the American University Executive MBA, with the Business Institute, and many more. And my final slide here on this side. This is me, George Jeff, and on the other side is my colleague, the other managing director, Kristina Brusova, and we're open for connections. Thank you.
Georgi, thank you for the interesting presentation. Just one question follow-up. How do you connect with the research that is made in your university? Do you support students that made their thesis there and that thesis could go on to the creating of a spin-off? And
yeah, totally. Basically, the program is open for everyone in the university and of course for alumni. And those students who have interest in research and development in R&D, they're not so much, but when they're not so many, sorry. But when we have such, we're totally up for accepting those.
Thank you. Maybe Christina have a question?
I have a lot of questions, but I'm wondering because in our pre-meeting, you mentioned that actually you used to have a great spin-off, which is connected with your own city, Burgas. And I'm wondering, did you manage today to see what is the connection and how actually the municipality could be, let's say, the first test drive or the first client of your product, or what do you think about this?
Okay, so briefly, I'm just going to say what this startup is about. 5 years ago, we started Burgas Free Tour. It is a free walking tour. And of course, it's happening in the center of Burgas. And from there, we just continued. We saw this opportunity in Elevate. I was not a managing director then. And we just decided to do some innovation, to start a business connected with the tourism, with the developing of the tourism, and just to offer more valuable experiences to tourists. We started in Suzopo. Regarding your question, yeah, totally the municipality maybe is one of the first stakeholders connected to each business, especially to what we started. Sorry, just about our startup in Suzopo. As I said, that's exactly the most valuable thing of the program, because the free tour is one thing, but having a startup and going to the clients and wanting to, to get paid for your services, something totally different, and to request some amount of money. We saw how challenging it is. So this year we decided to pause it and maybe postpone it.
Great, thank you, thank you. And now it's time to say hi to Professor Georgi Tudorov, who is the Dean of the Faculty of Industrial Technology next to Technical University of Sofia, but also he having a great experience when it comes to commercialization of a deep tech and science-based company, Spinoff. Even if I remember right, he mentioned in one of our meetings that the first Spinoff that he created was 20 years ago. So Professor Tudorov, it's great to welcome you here to share your experience, and of course, what are the opportunities and challenges next to universities to create more and more spin-offs, and of course, cooperation with the business in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you for invitation. It's my pleasure to participate in this meeting. It's important meeting from my point of view to cooperate between different sectors, different business organizations and academia. For my regret, I cannot participate physically because we are working for a next project that is very important for Technical University of Sofia. Yeah, about your mention, yes, more than 20 years ago, we practically established a spin-off with students of mine here in Technical University of Sofia in field of IT sector. This is a software company that now continues to exist. This shows sustainable solution and shows that such a model can work without the formal regulations, because 20 years ago we have not any idea that such an initiative will be called spin-off, but the project and the company nowadays exists involved in the development of product data management system entirely for outside Bulgaria market. We are working for big companies in computer-aided design sector, and this software helps them to manage the product history. But this is not just a history about the spin-offs and startups in our environment in Technical University of Sofia. I will just mention another successful story. One is new company, interdisciplinary company between us, discussed it from the beginning, between the engineering and medical groups. And this startup was established 4 years ago with 2 teams. The manager of this startup, called Bioprint, is Professor Nikolai Gabrovsky from Pirogov, from medical side, and colleague of mine, Nikolai Nikolov, Professor too, from Technical University of Sofia. And this startup is focused to create personal implants, and now exist. This is a good practice in the field of interdisciplinary startups, or we can call it with an element of spin-off. And another one is, once again, in additive technology. We create this company in same period 5 years ago, like a startup in the field of additive manufacturing, especially in field of industrial casting processes. The company name is Castprint. This company is owner of 2 patents about the additive technology. The patents are in the negotiation process nowadays with one of the leading company in the field of additive manufacturing, and we hope that this company can continue in the field in the international market, not only in Bulgarian industry. That's why I think there is an environment, formal or informal environment exists, and some good practices or test cases exist. In the same time, our university has some initiatives already are working in the field of innovations. We start 4 years ago initiative for the students, especially for our students, call it Student Innovation Hub. This initiative supported the ideas coming from the students, from entrepreneurial people in our students' society, and we granted such initiatives up to 5,000 Bulgarian leva just for support the idea to prepare some demonstrator of the idea, not a prototype, just a demonstrator to validate the idea. And support is not, the money is not the main way of support such initiatives. We're supporting with the mentoring, with our infrastructure, with the experts in our labs. And these initiatives goes very well, I think. Another initiative is a regular funding of inside of the technical university projects for young scientists. If they have some good ideas, they can develop the ideas in the early stages, let's say in a readiness level 3, 4, or something like that, to be prepared for the next stages that are more close to the market and to start to look for startup programs. But these good initiatives and good examples have to be encouraged and have to be enlarged. What about the obstacles that we start discussion? From my point of view, the big 3 obstacles are, first is the mentality of the young people. Many of the people, not only in Bulgaria, but all developed countries, is the dream is to be part of the big company with a good social environment, good salary, and so on. We have to change the mentality of young people that they can do something more than to have a good job in the big company. This is the first one. Second one is the talents, that because the spin-offs are based on the good ideas and high level of motivation and good management. This is the 3 pillars of from my point of view about the startups. The talents are hunted on the early stage of their study in the universities by the companies. And
Professor Todorov, because the time is quite running, we're having questions for you. Want you?
Yeah, okay.
Very fast. I know that we can, and for sure we will make additional event for going deeper, because the topics that you actually cover are really, really urgent and let's say quite wild. I'm sure that Dmitry Nikov having a question to you. I saw him.
Yeah. Professor Todorov, thank you for your interesting presentation. I just have a question in regards with the Center of Excellence of Mechatronic. How do you support creating spin-offs in the Center of Excellence of Mechatronics in Technical University of Sofia, and how do you support development of talents in that Center of Excellence?
Yeah, it's a very nice question. First of all, we have to we try to attract the best students, the people with the motivation and inspiration. And in this direction, we have a good practice, because many of the leaders of our students, in the first place, our diploma students, we attract them to work in the Center of Excellence. This is the first one. Second one is our students of all our specialties in the entire university have to know that the Center of Excellence of Mechatronics and Clean Technology is open for any ideas to support for a first step of the ideas development. And we are looking for such students, and we are looking for people that have ideas, and that we are looking for talents, and we are ready to fight with headhunters on the labor market for talents. This is our mission, to attract such people and to open for our young people new opportunity behind the good career in the big company.
Thank you. Thank you. And the last question, because really the time is not enough to covering so many interesting people with such a great know-how, but in your point of view, what is the secret ingredients to create a more spin-offs? And if you want, because the next level is connected with the IP, and IPOs, I'm sure that as academic representatives, you all having some recommendation or question that can be asked to the next panelists. So very briefly, probably starting with Krasimir. Krasimir? Yeah, very briefly. What is the secret ingredients? One word or one sentence?
I won't tell you if I knew it. But what I personally observe is that the level of education of the students needs to be a much higher in order for you to have a strong belief that you can make a spin-off. Because, for example,
not because. Statement and okay.
Okay,
Let's go into. I'm sorry for this.
Okay, to support creativity, but also to have the legislation.
Thank you. Maybe in one word, if we talk about newly established company, a spin-off company, is to have a very good definition of the added value of that company, the future added value, and how it can be accomplished and developed in cooperation between the academia and business, like a joint innovation.
Great, thank you. Georgi?
Thanks. I would say the team, because if you have a good team, in the end, everything is going to be all right.
Great. Professor Todorov, what about you?
Yeah, we have to encourage the talents to be more open-minded.
Great.
And ambition.
Thank you. And of course, Dimitrnikov, what is your opinion?
Okay, my opinion is that to support the emerging technologies, actually that create a lot of startup, we need 4 different things that need to be coordinated. These are policies, societies, talent, and science. If one of those are missing, nothing happens. Nothing happens. And they need to be coordinated at really detailed level.
Thank you. Thank you all. It was a pleasure for me to being part of this amazing panel. And for sure, this is only the first of many more coming. So thank you again. Big applause for our guest.
Thank you.
Come on stage. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, guys and girls. We move forward to our next panel, which is one of the key topics, as we heard already, the topic of intellectual property in terms of technology transfer from academia. And we have some, again, some international experts and guests. I would like to start with Jeanette Gorsala from Austria. Okay.
Hello, Kaloyan. Thank you for inviting me very much.
Thank you for visiting us in Burgas in Bulgaria. Where are you at the moment?
Currently back in Vienna, but just arrived today morning from San Francisco, so quite busy traveling this summer.
Yes, I hope also you have some nice inspiration. Jeanette, as I mentioned, you have a lot of experience in IP technology transfer, mostly maybe from the Austrian ecosystem. Can you please just share your point of view, your experiences, your recommendations when it comes to spin-offs and intellectual property? Thank you.
Yes, of course. So thank you for this very interesting question. And I have quite some insights I made very recently in Silicon Valley to share as comparison also what makes a culture of innovation, or what are the key ingredients for success. And the one thing, of course, is excellent academia as a starting point. So kind of like a university hub where all these innovations and new technology can be developed. The second point is a very critical one, and it's the knowledge transfer, because we have a lot of excellent scientists and researchers at universities everywhere. But kind of like the innovations they develop are mostly, it depends on the jurisdiction, property of their employer or from the university, the resources they use. So, and transferring this knowledge to a startup company or another company and using and commercializing this is quite a critical process, associated with quite some legal risks also. And this is kind of like the key ingredient to create an enabling environment. So not only to have the funding in place, to have the research excellence in place, but also to have the legal framework allowing to take the knowledge outside of the university and create all these amazing products that we can. And this is a very critical point in Austria and also in other jurisdictions where mostly it's quite hard to transfer this knowledge. The one thing would be to create, of course, a startup company and take the knowledge out. Here, you mostly have some conflicts. Another way would be to enter into a licensing agreement with the university, so both parties can participate in this innovation. But here, mostly, we see some difficulties getting research out to entrepreneurs and kind of like creating these spin-offs.
Maybe a short question in between. How long does it take such a process from a IP point of view, from a law point of view?
It basically depends on the party. So a typical lawyer's answer. I have experience with some spin-offs which were recently created, for example, with the Austrian Institute of Technology. Here it was quite a lucky case, the last one I had, that kind of like both parties were rather amicably and kind of like working towards the spin-off. Here the spin-off was kind of like created, so the company and the shell for the IP in 1 month or so. So that was not critical. And then it took the startup 6 months or 8 months to get to market, because kind of like they wanted to work together, they wanted to collaborate, and entered into a licensing agreement that allowed both parties to share those IP rights. The startup could commercialize the product, and the kind of like the other party gets some royalty licensing fee or participates. In other cases, I've seen many spin-offs fail actually, because they couldn't come to an agreement with their former employer, university, and so on. So that are very bad cases. And in other cases, years. So it really depends on the relationship of the parties.
Yes, one thing I remember when we had a discussion with you some time ago was that, of course, there are different stakeholders, the spin-off company, the scientists, the university, and you mentioned everybody friends until the contracts are on the table to sign. So this was like a very, there are some typical moments of truth on that process. Until then, everybody's open to talk, to negotiate, to share. But when the contracts are on the table, then people start to change maybe. So as I mentioned, there are different stakeholders involved. From a university point of view, there's the university and maybe the technology transfer office. Sometimes it's a separate legal entity. Sometimes it's within the research institute integrated. Are there some best practices, or how do you, if you could structure it yourself, how would you structure the easiest structure for spin-off companies for the process from your point of view?
Yes, thank you for that question, because it's very interesting looking at these structures. As you mentioned, some universities have a separate office dealing with this matter. Those are usually universities that quite often create spin-offs. So if you look at kind of like the UK or the US, where this process is very institutionalized, so they have these separate offices dealing with the matters. And I think that is quite kind of like, looking at it from an academic and kind of like entrepreneurial point of view, a very good way to go, because they have their standard licensing agreements, they have their standard processes which are known, which makes it quite easy for the research team to go through the process. So there's some clarity which steps I need to follow to kind of like finally create my spin-off. So the one thing is structured process and clarity, which I think is very important to make this as easy and as effective as possible. Looking at it from an IP point of view, there are always two factors. So the one thing is the IP you can protect. So trademarks, copyrights, patents, whatever form of IP you might protect. This is the one thing that kind of like mostly is in the foreground. The second thing is the knowledge that is embedded in the individual. So kind of like all the ideas in the minds of the scientists, and that is usually the area of business secret. So that kind of like every employee takes his experience, or every researcher takes his experience with him. So these are two different things to consider. And for the IP you might protect, here you often have the case that you need to come to some agreement with the university. Only in those cases where you develop something fully different that is not related to your job, not related to the university, then there might be a possibility actually to kind of like take it for yourself. Otherwise, you need to come to some agreement. And also here, it's very encouraging for both parties to find a sensible economic agreement that benefits both parties. So it's a compromise. No one can win on this topic. And all your experience you have learned and gained during the ages, you take it with you because it's embedded in yourself.
Yes, I see. It's interesting because as I heard, sometimes the scientists, they have some of them look for the opportunity to spin off next to the university, so not together, because as you mentioned, a patent, there might be slight different changes, and you have a totally different product which is like not created in the university, which is basically from the money of the society actually. And in different ecosystem, in different countries like UK, US, and Europe, sometimes regulation comes from the country, like how to deal with equity and IP. Does it belong to the university from the start? Does it belong to the scientists from the start? And the next steps are the negotiations. Is it better to have total freedom for the scientists, or is it better to have total regulation from above to make for the lawyers think easier?
I think both are not very desirable options, because if you have full regulation, it might be very burdensome to follow kind of like all the regulations and this process. If you have total freedom, might also not be a very beneficial environment, because potentially the university will have more power in negotiations than the researchers that want to create the spin-off. So it's basically what I think would be a good solution is to have processes and guidelines and some milestones or some key elements protecting the researchers and enabling spin-offs. So kind of like more in the direction of enablement, because we have a lot of regulation. We have patent regulation, we have corporate law, that's all in place. And also what is mostly an inhibiting factor very often is the employee inventions clauses. So kind of like that everything you invent during your tenure belongs to university or employer. And here creating some sparks that enable innovation would be very beneficial.
Thank you on that. From my side, I have no more questions. If you have something to add, feel free. But we saw that from our Romanian friends as well, they mentioned the IP topic is one of the key topics in this whole process. So we will be in touch with you also on the future steps for Spinoff Bulgaria, the initiative. thank you from my side if you have some last words. Yes, thanks from my side again.
Thank you very much for the invitation. So next year, I definitely plan on visiting you live in Bulgaria. This time it unfortunately was not possible. Last words from my side would be that we have excellence in the universities and in research, and it would be very, very bad that we do not kind of like commercialize on this and do not use this. So it's like more a call to action to the parties to be more enabling and more innovative, and kind of like also bring all the innovation we actually have to market.
Thank you very much, Annette.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Kalian, who is the next guest?
The next we have, we stay international. We have Mr. Fabian Lim, who is a senior executive at Imperial College London, also online.
Hi, Colin. Thanks for inviting me.
Hi, we can hear you and we can see your presentation. Thank you from our side for joining us. It's a pleasure. Of course, Imperial College, a very known one. Yes, I would say the stage is yours. So please provide your insights to our guests, to our audience.
Great. So I thought I might give you a bit of my background. I've been at Imperial College for almost a year now as a senior executive for industry partnerships and commercialization. And my role here is to manage the partnerships with some of the larger entities that Imperial College collaborates with. And also my other part of my role is to look at new technologies, new research, new inventions coming out of the college and help facilitate the patenting process and also understand whether it's suitable for the spin-off process as well. And prior to that, I was at the University of Melbourne as a tech transfer lead for the medical device and physical science portfolio as well. So I've seen quite a few licenses to companies. One example I was involved in was a license to Synchron, which is a large medical device company that recently did their first brain machine interface. I've also been involved in a lot of spin-outs that required raising investment and being involved in the spin-outs directly as well from the academic institution. So yeah, happy to be here. So if we can go to the next slide. I just thought it might be useful from my side that we provide some perspectives of the university. We've already heard a few times from people that it is difficult to actually sometimes negotiate a contract with the institution. So I thought it might be a good idea to give perspectives on what the university, well, the ones that I've been involved in, what they really want to see or what their motivations are. And generally, from a university, if I'm looking at a new technology, a spin-off is one way for research translation and impact. In fact, when researchers publish, that's a form of impact as well. So we would often look at what are some of the ways. Typically licensing to a big company is quite a standard way, and oftentimes we would want to support the researchers in what they are committed to. So one other thing is that often the IP that has been generated has usually been funded by the public through grants. And so it is generally a sense of duty, I suppose, to try and make sure that there is, not to say a return on investment, but a benefit to society is one of the key priorities for us from what I've seen. And so that's an important factor when we actually decide on how we take things out and get it to the market. And finally, of course, we want to know that the research team or the inventors or whoever it may be is actually committed to that path towards commercialization, whether it's a license to a company or in fact a spin out itself. We all know that there's an incredible amount of effort required in terms of establishing a new venture and getting investment and getting a product to market. There are so many factors to consider. So an understanding of what that looks like, how that interplays with the research institution moving forward is important. So those are generally a sort of high-level overview that that I have in terms of what we consider when we make those sorts of decisions. If you go to the next slide, I've sort of summarized Imperial College's startup formation process. We've got what we call a founder-driven route here, and this is applied fairly across all the startups for the college owned IP. And essentially, it provides the researchers who are interested, up to 12 months to try and establish that startup. We won't market it to anyone else. We won't talk to anyone else, gives them that time. There is a good ecosystem at Imperial College in terms of accelerators, mentoring services, even prototyping spaces for our staff, students to work on that. And so that provides a good sort of starting point to gauge interest essentially from potential investors. And so there is a relatively standard amount that we might take in terms of equity and royalties, and that generally ranges from 5 to 10% with a non-dilute component ranging from 3 million to 15 million, and that really depends on the sector. But what we found is that because this is sort of quite standard across the board, we usually take about 3 to 6 months to put these formations into place. And just to give you an understanding of numbers, I think Imperial would have probably up to about 15 college-owned specific IP startups a year, generally around 15 to 20. If we include student startups who's part of our ecosystem, that goes up to close to 70, I think, is the number. So yeah, it seems to work well, but it's something that we're reviewing all the time as well, and it evolves. I'm certainly not suggesting that this is the only and the right way. It's one way, and we're still exploring how we can do things better. And finally, I thought in the next slide, I've just put down three quick points that I've noticed when the deal's done, the startup's on its way. What are some of the challenges that these startups face? Oftentimes, what we would see is actually the IP costs and when they're due, and sometimes it's a surprise to the startups as to how much it actually costs. So the best thing is to actually engage with either the university or your patent attorney. Make sure you try and get an understanding of when those costs are due, and it might be difficult sometimes because examination can vary quite a bit. But also consider, setting aside, particularly in your investment thesis, setting aside a good amount of budget to be able to file new IP as you develop in your startup as well, because oftentimes that's forgotten. It's not just the IP coming out, but it's a new IP that's being developed as part of the startup. Make sure that your reporting back to the university is met. It's often not so much of a check or policing kind of activity from a university's perspective, but for us, it's about looking for the good news stories. Any way that we can promote any good news coming out from your startup, that's certainly one way that we can do it by this. And it's also another mechanism for your startup to get a little bit more exposure through the college's networks as well. And finally, conflict of interest is important. It's probably a whole nother topic that can be discussed, but it's one that's quite difficult to start to manage if a spin out, particularly, an academic remains as part of a researcher as well as being on the startup. But the first step is just to declare it, and it works both ways. It's not just being at the academic institution. You might be working on multiple projects, but it's also good for the company to know, whether there are similar types of projects that you're working on with other companies. So best to declare these. And with that, that's all I had on my things to discuss. So hopefully that provides sort of some helpful guidance as to academic spinouts.
Yes, some very insightful slides and information. Thank you very much. We will be also in touch with you in future with Imperial College and our goal to support the spin-off culture in Bulgaria. Thank you once again for taking your time. It was a pleasure for me.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Stay on the stage. I want to, because the discussion on site, according to the intellectual property, is just starting. We saw already the international European good practices, and right now it's time to focus on a Bulgarian reality and what coming next. So for me, it's a great pleasure to invite on the stage Nelly Poprelkova, law firm Cvetkova and Partners on the stage, and Vladimir Borisov, who is the director of the Patent Bureau in Bulgaria. Please welcome on the stage. Okay, so starting with you, to share with, it will be great to share with us. I know that you're having a great presentation. What is actually the process of the IP when it's concerned the spin-off companies?
Okay, hi, my name is Nelly Poprelkova and I'm part of the team of Cvetkova and Partners Law Firm. I'd like first to thank for the invitation and for the opportunity to meet so many interesting people here. Yes, I have a presentation which I think it's not necessary to go in details as we discussed already what are the benefits of the spin-off. So I'd like to note on the legal entities which are the parties on the project for which will need protection of the intellectual property. These are the academic areas, the universities, and also the business. We have different options to cooperate for cooperation between these legal entities. For example, we can, in one side, we can establish an organization first, and the Bulgarian law introduces 3 types of organization which may be appropriate in our case. The commercial company, the non-profit legal person, or the company under the Obligations and Contract Act. And the other option is to just conclude a contract for an intent. So with this contract, we will have the opportunity to arrange the rights and obligations of the parties, as well as the IP rights, if the one party will be the owner of the IP right and the other will receive some kind of remuneration, or will arrange some kind of co-ownership of the right, we have wide freedom of the negotiation here. Yes, I talked about this. So considering our opinion, we have very wide spectrum of IP rights, but the most common here are the copyright and the patent and the useful model. With patent, we can protect an invention, and with the useful model, we can protect the so-called little invention, which is very close to the invention, but have, for example, lighter requirements from the registration. It's cheaper. It has a shorter period of protection and other differences. And I'd like to point on the ways how we can transfer the intellectual property rights. When we talk about copyright, we can conclude a contract for the use of the work. When we talk about a patent or a utility model, we can conclude a license contract. And all of them can be contributed in a company which is newly established or already existing in the, yes, this is the short presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Nelly, for the short overview of what is the situation in Bulgaria. I'm curious because from the previous presentation, I saw a very accelerated period of time for opening and having declaring the IP next to a spin-off. So what is the situation in Bulgaria? How long is the period of time that the company is supposed to know when it starts this procedure to protecting their services or product with IP?
So the procedure for the registration of the patent is really complex, and it's important to have a great team, not only from lawyers, but it's very, very important to have people skilled in the with skills in the concrete area, because the inventions may be various, and it's important to have someone who knows exactly what we're going to protect. The period for registration may take more than a year. As the colleague said, it depends very much on the cooperation between the people. As the term of the protection, the Bulgarian law and the European patent protect the invention for 20 years, as this period cannot be renewed.
Great, thank you. Okay. Thank you. I'm sure that at the end I will have one more question to you, but before this, I want to give a floor to Professor Vladia Borisova, because I'm sure that she will go deeper to understand what is the situation in Bulgaria, and of course, what are the future plans, how you plan to stimulate the companies and from the government point of view to have more and more IP and to secure the services. Can we please roll the presentation?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to be here, to be part of this event. Thank you. I just would like to start with the information, because it's information, it's important for all future startup and spin-off companies, that our IP legislation is harmonized with the European one. So for our companies, the requirements will be the same as the requirements for the European companies, which actually facilitate the process. My presentation will not go in depth of intellectual property because it's universe. Intellectual property, it's a wonderland. If you know how to protect and how to manage intellectual property, you may become a billionaire for one night. And we have a lot of good examples for that. So I would just try to explain how that could happen. Maybe I should press the green one. Technology shapes our world. We see it. We are part of this. We live in this technology and digital world already. Technologies are all around us. Technologies actually help us to create more and more, to be more and more innovative. And when we create more and more, and when we are more and more innovative, actually we create more intellectual property, right? So we may say that intellectual property creates and shapes technologies. Why intellectual property is so profitable and is so interesting to be obtained by a person which develops some invention? Probably because it's intangible asset. As intangible asset, these intellectual property objects has specific characteristics which are uniqueness, non-physical wear, which means there is no amortization fees, which is very good for the business, right? There is the capacity of the object to be used by many people in the same time. And not only this, during the utilization of the object, each of those licensees actually gain additional profit, which is added value for the business. From this perspective, we may say that the economic results of having intellectual property protection over our inventions, because we talk about technology development, that's why I'm talking mainly about invention, but it means also for the utility models, trademarks, is the exclusiveness of intellectual property right over the intellectual property object. This is the trade monopoly which we receive by the intellectual property right. Also the added value of the access profit, of course, the competitive advantage, because the only SME enterprise or the certain person, which is the stakeholder of the intellectual property, has the right to use it, which is competitive advantage. What does exclusive intellectual property right means? Actually, what can this person do? This person can use the intellectual property object. By using, we understand producing intellectual property. That means producing the invention, the first automobile, the first car, the first phone, the first computer, all those first inventions over which we obtain the patent. Secondly, that exactly the only one person could license or could sell the object. Of course, selling is not the best option because you receive only the price, and this is not the maximum price you can obtain. This is the price from the exact moment. Licensing is something different. This is to monetize many times the economic potential of the invention. And of course, the person can prohibit any other person unauthorizedly to use this invention. Trade monopoly is something interesting because, as we know, the monopoly is forbidden, but here it's allowed. And it's only the trade monopoly, which means to produce and commercialize all the examples and goods created by the production process. And also trade monopoly is limited in the time. What my colleague just said, you can be a trade monopolist only for the time period of the protection, which means 20 years for the invention. Of course, if you pay the annual fees, just to be sure that the protection will continue for 20 years. Access profit, how that happened? Why by having intellectual property is so easy to gain access profit? Of course, because you're the only one who have it. You're the only one who has the right to use it, to industrialize and to commercialize it. Of course, for a certain period of time, for certain territory, but still you're the only one. And this is big advantage. Talking about universities, talking about the intellectual property of the universities, we should say that if the university wants to become entrepreneur unit, it's necessary to identify and to develop intellectual property portfolio. Usually the intellectual property portfolio of the university should be separated in two dimensions. First, should combine the industrial property object, those which could be industrialized. The second one should be combined objects which are more related to the marketing and commercializations of the goods which will be produced during the industrialization. Here you may see industrial objects are invention, utility models, and know-how, technology know-how mainly. And of course, trademarks, industrial designs are more related to the commercial aspects of the IP utilization. How to go from intellectual property to spin-off or spin-offs, let's say spin-offs. One of the major requirements is each university to develop its specific intellectual property policy. In the intellectual property policy, it should be written who is the owner of the intellectual property, which are the conditions and the rules under which this intellectual property could be technology transferred and commercialized in order to obtain some incomes. Secondly, it's important this IP policy to be parallel to the regulations in the law of scientific research and innovation. We are still waiting this law to be implemented, but I believe in the near future that will be the part of the reality. Then, how to commercialize something or how to technology transfer it if we don't evaluate it. But the evaluation still is not enough. After the evaluation of the object, this object becomes asset, business asset, which business asset should be capitalized in the balance sheet of the university, just in order then to be used for any kind of spin-off and startup activities. Otherwise, that wouldn't be possible. On the territory of Bulgaria, there is a special regulation Act 61. This is the Council of Ministries Act. It's important because there is the rules under which the universities are allowed to create their own commercial entities, and also those commercial entities to become part of the capital of other commercial entities by using intellectual property of the university. And of course, one of the major issues for each university, each student who creates spin-off, each PhD, each professor, each scientific group which are working on that topic, is how, in the end of the day, the income will be distributed between all the participants in this ecosystem. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, it will be a pleasure for me to answer them.
Thank you, Professor Borisova, for quite good insight of regulation. I'm wondering, on a practical point of view, how often and what are the let's say, the good fundament of creation of a common IP between business and academia? What are the good examples and what's happened in Bulgaria next to this topic?
Of course, there are good examples because there's some funding stimulating this kind of cooperation between university and business. But to be honest, the patent filing activity is higher from the business part, not so high from the academia part. I believe it's only question of resources for the patenting procedures because they are not so cheap, they're expensive. And as we know, usually the universities do research and science under the state budget subsidy or different type of project. Usually those projects, the money which are in the budget are not enough for patenting. That's why universities mainly patent on the territory of Bulgaria, not so much obtaining European patents. Unfortunately, I really wish this to change one day. And the patent office works on this direction to stimulate the Bulgarian inventors, universities and research institutions to start patenting abroad. And do I have time to mention one of the initiatives? In this line, the Patent Office has a program together with the Intellectual Property Office of the European Commission, which program helps small and medium enterprises to identify their intellectual property objects and to obtain protection over them and to develop this IP portfolio. And all the expenses for this service is covered by the European Union Patent Office. So it's a good program, and I hope more and more enterprises will profit from it.
You know, you are quite proactive, and I'm sure that the calendar till the end of the year is full of interesting events connected with intellectual property in Bulgaria. Can you mention one or two upcoming interesting events connected with the topic?
Thank you for this opportunity. Actually, now there is an ongoing process of different webinars. They're online. We do it again together with the Intellectual Property Office of the European Commission and Union. They are mainly for small and medium enterprises, again, on the topics of trademarks and design, how to protect, how to use and managing them. Especially it's important when we talk about trademarks, because there are new varieties of the trademarks, very modern, very dynamic and communicative. So please join. All information is on the website.
Thank you. Thank you to joining us and give us this feedback. Unfortunately, the time is always quite short, but I believe this is only the beginning of a successful cooperation, because again, the synergy, the ecosystem, the university, the government, they're supposed to stand on one table and to discuss what are the opportunities and hopefully to achieve the result. Institution like Imperial College, why not next year? I think that also is a good idea to showing such a good result. With this, we closure this interesting discussion. Thank you again, ladies, being here with us. Applause. Okay, and now I will again give a floor to Kao-Yan to share about the VNRIs and what is the Spinoff factory actually, and why you decided to, let's say, organize this event and to starting dealing with the Spinoff culture. So, yeah, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, we saw today that VNRIs is a co-organizer of the event, and now I wanted to share some more, let's say, information and insights why we started this and what our vision is and where we want to go with it. Of course, the story is longer. It started like maybe 1.5 to 2 years ago. From my perspective, at least, as I mentioned, I'm based in the German-speaking area of Europe, and I saw that, of course, startups, which is my let's say first contact to innovation, is a startup industry, are very trendy, very fashionable, and of course very important for investments, for development of society. But they are fast moving innovation, let's say, digital platforms and other. And to be honest, more and more started to a little bit get bored of the startup ecosystem, not because it's not so progressive, but because of this inflation of startups. And I wanted to have something more substantial. And then we saw that the technology transfer and spin-off movement is getting attention, but also needs some support, because they have a lot of challenges between the worlds of academia, business, investments, government. So we decided to focus especially on the science-based innovation, which is way more challenging than the normal startups, but still it moves the world forward, because science is one of the most important parts of humanity, actually. And so this is like the long story how the spin-off initiative began. Our aim at Venrise and with the Spinoff Bulgaria initiative is to bundle all these networks we gained with our partners on a national level and on an international level. We saw that the ecosystem are important. We saw that international best practices are important. Contacts to very different stakeholders and experts are important. To diaspora, but also to international partners. And so basically, Spinoff Bulgaria is the idea to bundle these resources, to provide visibility to the science, so to the scientific world, and to connect it with the business world, with the investment world, with the governmental world. Also to position Bulgaria on the map. On the European, maybe on the global map, to foster partnerships for spin-off innovation and for technology transfer in general. So of course here, as a lot of diaspora people, the idea is to support the country. And regarding Venrise, we are trying to support a number of stakeholders. One of them are the universities. We saw that they have more issues with the technology transfer offices and the process. So the universities are one stakeholder we support. Scientists are part of universities, but also a separate stakeholder, which is oftentimes scientists are not entrepreneurs and not equipped with all of the knowledge you need to succeed in this business world. So they are also a stakeholder we want to support. So these are like the main two structures. Of course, one significant part are investors, because without funding, few things happen. So we have our investor network as well on a national and international level. For the investors, we want to secure a quality pipeline of science-based innovation. So we provide a selected exclusive pipeline for them, and for the scientists or the universities, we provide access to funding. And last but not least, Spinoff Bulgaria is an initiative for creating awareness, the topic of culture. So we want to promote the culture of technology transfer, of science-based innovation, in the connect to the business and ecosystems. That's in it in a nutshell. We have some brochures prepared, which you can also see bilingual, Bulgarian and English, when you go out. And for more questions, we are always here. As we said, we are an ecosystem initiative. So I think we are like open source, often for everybody who wants to support. And yeah, thank you from my side. So moving to the next, maybe final point, which is, as far as I see, the investment perspective. And we have our panelists, Kamen Slavov, Fund of Funds, Vladimir Tomov, Head of Investment Council, Alper Selen, Enhanced Ventures, Angel Angelov, Innovation Capital. And the moderator, Emil Shekerjisky, also a well-known face in the Bulgarian startup world.
Hello, Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Angel, for being here. Thank you. Do we see each other? Only one face. Okay, so I'll introduce the guest again. Kamen Slavov, Fund of Funds. Vladimir Tomov, the Bulgarian Chamber of Commerce. Alper Tselen, Enhance Ventures. And with us here, Angel Angelov from Innovation Capital. So the formation of this panel is going to be you the first, present yourself one by one, what you're doing in Bulgaria, especially in spin-offs. So the stage is yours. Maybe we'll begin with Mr. Kamen Slavov.
Hello there, it's Kamen Slavov from the Fund of Funds. I'm really sorry that I cannot be with you physically because something came up in the office, but I'm really sorry that I cannot join you in this amazing city in Bulgaria. About the Fund of Funds, we have prepared a few slides and I'll go through them quite quickly. So the Fund of Funds is a state-owned vehicle which combines about 650 million euros of European funds. If we can go to the next slide, please. In order to structure and market the so-called financial instruments. Can we move to the next slide, please? Anyways, basically what we do is that we combine resources from several operational programs, meaning we intervene on the market with respect to thank you very much. With respect to several policy areas. One of them is business financing in general and tech transfer and innovation support in particular. So what we do is that we structure the so-called products from our side, which are, let's say, guarantees or what is more relevant in this case, venture capital funds. We market them, so we select our fund managers and we support the fundraising by allowing and designing our products in such a way that they attract private funds in addition to the public ones. Our fund managers that we have selected, from their end, they invest in the so-called final beneficiaries, which are the investees, basically. Can we have the next slide, please? To go through the. Thank you. So this is our portfolio. So the blue one is the interesting for this session. It's the so-called Sme Financing, where we act through most of the biggest banks in Bulgaria and through 5 funds as well on the market. We have sizable infrastructure business, which is debt related. So we support municipal infrastructure there. Next slide, please. This is what happened so far. In reality, based on the 650 million euros that have been invested by the state in the Fund of Funds, so almost everything is on the market now. And based on that, we have financed indirectly more than 2,000 companies, municipalities, and so on and so forth, mostly SMEs. These companies have received close to 1 billion, more than 1 billion level of 500 billion euros of different forms of finance, mostly debt, but maybe 30% of that, maybe 20% of that figure is equity. So what we see here is that the basic idea of the Fund of Funds works. So with €1 of public resources, we were able to attract maybe euros of financing for our final beneficiaries. Next slide, please. Just to cover the future. Thank you. We expect to grow as any company does. What you see here is the so-called next programming period, where we secure our own mandates from the different operational programs. If we are successful in our fundraising, we will be able to raise additional 1 billion euros. Maybe half of this will be channeled towards innovative SMEs, digitalization of companies, circular economy in companies, and so on and so forth. The rest will be channeled towards infrastructure. So we are really excited about the prospect of the funds in its quest to support the venture capital in general in the country, and the financing of innovations and tech transfer in particular. So this is all work in progress. Nevertheless, I'm going to share in the next slide, please, our intentions to finance technology transfer. So in the past, we have made attempts to create a dedicated technology transfer fund in Bulgaria. And then COVID happened and other things, but we were persistent with this dream. So provided that we've got the mandate, and it seems that we would, we are looking forward to structure a dedicated technology transfer fund in Bulgaria with a firepower of close to 60 million. So basically, this would be supporting innovative companies that make innovations on the market, spin-offs of large corporates, spin-offs of universities. We are looking forward, and as I said, we are very excited with this product. Once we've secured this funding, we'll be looking forward to receive as much feedback from the market as possible, and as ideas as possible from the ecosystem. What would be the best way to deploy this money? Because technology transfer in the country, we have been scratching our heads for a long time now how to approach this investment thesis, is facing a number of challenges. Lack of tradition and of traction is just a starter, and we are really hoping that through this product will be maybe a small part, but part of the solution that would lead the financial market in general towards supporting innovation in the country and technology transfer in particular. So I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, the next I would like to invite Vladimir Tomov to present himself.
Thank you, Emil. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. If you can get closer to the microphone.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation to join this great event focused on the spin-offs. This is very important that we have started in Bulgaria to discuss how to support different scientists and students and other innovation projects in Bulgaria. Also having in mind that Bulgaria becomes a regional investment hub with the support of the fund of funds and the European Investment Fund. Well, I will present very briefly without slides. From one side, the Bulgarian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and also the investment council at the chamber. Bulgarian Chamber of Commerce and Industry is the oldest Bulgarian business organization, established more than 226 years ago. And we have a very broad network of contacts and connections with the chambers all over the world. And we can provide support to the Bulgarian companies to sell their products all over the world. Also, we are part of various international business networks, also in Europe and abroad, in order to support this company product presentation. And we have various projects and different contacts with the universities. We have very good and well-developed database with different scientific and startup projects in different sectors, developed in many European funded projects. Also, we can support the scientists to evaluate if their product is innovative, and together with the European Union support to give a certificate that can help them to present the product to various investors and partners. We have also some experience how this kind of business as a spin-off company project development was organized also in the various universities some time ago in Bulgaria, but also abroad. And we can help in many different aspects. Now, I would like to focus also on the investment council at the Chamber of Commerce and Industry that gathers together in one platform banks, funds, investors, corporate investors, investment agencies, and guarantee funds in order to provide common support to the business development of the various companies. The Chamber of Commerce has about 50,000 companies members, mainly SMEs. It has very good experience in supporting them. But from our, let's say, investment point of view, we can provide mutual support from our members to various business projects.
Okay, I think Vladimir will take it into a deep questionnaire in the next Q&A.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vladimir Tomov. Next, I would like to invite Alper Selen, founding partner at Enhance Ventures, to present what they are doing.
Thank you very much. I wish I could be there in person as well. I'll just go very quickly. Enhance Ventures is a 6-year-old venture studio based here in the Middle East and headquartered in Dubai and Riyadh. We operate in 8 countries across the region. As a studio, we have 3 missions. First mission is to build our own ventures, and we have a portfolio of companies, and it has worked out well. Our IRR is 72%. Our early investors are quite happy. we benefit from building things from scratch and increases the chance of success for those ventures by sharing resources, capabilities, talent. And that's what the main mandate for the studio is. And we specialize in fintech and future of commerce. And the second mandate is working with corporate and government partners and building ventures or venture studios for them, with them. And for that, we can't talk about all of them, most of them publicly, but the ones that are publicly announced, we work with Abu Dhabi and Dubai governments and a few other governments that we cannot mention, and some corporations as well. Usually, the studio model ends up being a great tool for corporate or government innovation, where internal innovation systems are too slow or too costly to operate, especially for things beyond Horizon. And the third mandate is increasing the intellectual property, doing research and gathering information, and then disseminating that information on the venture studio model. I'm known as the studio man. I'm a big promoter of the studio model globally, and that's how we met the organizers of this event. And we are especially staunch believers that the studio model is a great expediter, a proactive tool for building startups in an ecosystem that is emerging, that may not have all the resources of Silicon Valley, let's say. And to that end, we are board members. I'm a board member of GSSN, the global collective of studios called Global Startup Studio Network, based in Denver, US. My partner, Ritesh, is a board member in Studio Hub, which is its version in Europe. And we generate a lot of IP. Our white paper you can download from our website and has that online, is the most circulated document in the studio world. We also co-authored the GSSN's white paper. And you can also see all the studios that is in our database, 814 of them around the world. On our website, we have a map of all the studios in the world, and we keep on building out to that. And finally, we teach a course with GSSN, a studio bootcamp for emerging studios to build better best practices, use the best practices, and build better processes. That's what we do.
Thank you very much, Alper. Thank you very much. Last but not least, Angel Angelov, a managing partner at Innovation Capital.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the invitation, Christina and team. Amazing event. A few words about Innovation Capital. It's a 21.1 million euro venture capital firm that is investing in pre-seed and seed stage companies in Bulgaria. We're sector agnostic. We invest up to 50,000 euro for pre-seed or idea stage companies that are looking for their first check of outside of investment. And we are also backing up companies in more advanced stages, but still in the earlier stages, up until 1 million euro. For the past 2 years, we completed 120 transactions. So we have 120 companies in our portfolio in various industries. All companies are still performing well. We have 0 mortality rate as of now, and we're happy to say that. We have a mandate to invest another 10 million. About half of the investment has been completed, and we have another 10 million to invest in ventures in the next 1.5 years. So if you have an interesting project, happy to engage after that. We are our portfolio companies have attracted follow-on funding surpassing 12 million euro so far, and I'm sure that this will grow. This number will grow. And we have more than 250 employees in the companies that in our portfolio so far. We're backed by the fund of funds, so I'm glad that I went after Kamen, so don't have to go in greater detail of what the fund of funds is and how we are structured. But yeah, we both have public funding and private funding, and we operate as a private entity. And why spinoffs? We are working with corporates as well for pipeline building, for partnerships that helps a lot in terms of what we do, and we believe that we add a lot of value to the ecosystem and also to our partners by working with them and providing the opportunity to invest and to grow and build companies together. So a type of a spin-off is the corporate venture building model that we're developing. For example, we're working with Sirma Group Holding. It's one of the top 10 largest IT companies in Bulgaria.
We're talking about the opposite, like a startup being embedded into a corporation, right?
Correct. It's sort of it's an example of a spin-off, I would say, because startups usually in a spin-off, you would expect that the textbook example of a spin-off is a startup emerging from a company, from a corporation, a bigger company. Our model is a bit reverse, indeed. We work with companies, sourcing them to the company and working with the company, with the corporation. That's the Sirma model, and we're executing an acceleration program for them. We also have a partnership with Bosch.io, another big corporation, international. We're their pipeline and communications partner in scouting. They have an acceleration program that is run in Munich. And we're basically closing their application forms, helping them close their application forms with companies from our portfolio and companies from the Bulgarian ecosystem as well. We also have a partnership with a German corporate venture capital firm called APX. They're the corporate VC behind Porsche and Axel Springer. So
all of them looking for startups in Bulgaria.
They are looking particularly for startups in Bulgaria, and we could be co-investing in deals.
It will lead me to the first question to all of the panel, actually. So of course, the first question is going to be about Bulgaria. What is the typical structure or different structure most popular and doable to do a spin-off in Bulgaria? Angel, maybe you can answer.
We're not going to invent the wheel here, so we're going to follow the practices abroad. So I believe that the typical structure or the most adequate structure is to develop a private company that has a direct investment from the corporation, from the business partner. There are other versions. For example, you can give equity instead of cash donation, or some kind of a partnership to just work together on an arm's length basis. So providing business opportunities to the startup. That also is an opportunity to work with the corporation without the risk for the corporation of the failure, because in essence, that's the big drama, for example, for public companies when they set up a daughter company, a subsidiary. The big risk is that company fails, and the public company loses track of its price, of the share price. So usually ventures that are emerging from corporates are preferred to stay private and to stay outside of the management of the corporates before they go to market, or once they're validated by the market and they're more advanced.
Do you have any example from Bulgaria for a successful spin-off?
Well, a few probably. Maybe we can discuss a spin-off that's went bigger than its mother company. It's not in our portfolio, unfortunately. You probably know the company Credissimo. They have some operational insight and also involvement in the company called Nexo, and Nexo is by a
blockchain company Nexo for lending.
Exactly, for lending. And they're believed to be either unicorns or closer to that unicorn mark. And for
Depends
sure,
on the price-
Credissimo is
depends on
not
the
that
price of the
valuation.
cryptocurrency.
Increase the
Yeah,
price
they were
of,
close to a billion valuation. It's true, even a bit below.
If I may, I have one question to you, Emil.
Yes,
Actually,
surprise.
We're working together very tight next to pitch-to-pitch event, which is actually the stage where everybody with idea can validate in front of investor. From your point of view, is there a good environment for a spin-off creation in Bulgaria? And what is the missing? Because you're coming from Israel, you have a long-term background. Tomorrow we'll share more and going deeper next to it. But
Thank you to the question. I would like to focus on one or two words, the missing gap. We haven't talked about it yet in this panel, but the universities in Bulgaria are quite strong. And also the talent there is quite strong, not yet exposed to the real world and to the real working scenario. And then there is the business and the bridge between them, and the spin-offs created by those bridges is something that I'm missing. We create another series of events called Science with a Beer, where we invite those universities, best lecturers with their thesis to explain it to simple people to understand, and maybe form in this way a company. Form out of the thesis, form out of the specialty with a guy from the business to form together a company. It's quite a spin-off, and I think it's something that we are all missing, the bridge between science and business.
So I see other partnership projects between us, because a lot of topics today were raised, a lot of interest, and for sure we need to make more focusing discussions, because as you mentioned, yeah, the talent is strong, the infrastructure exists, the ecosystem is great, and there is willing of the governmental part. So this moment is the perfect for us. So thank you a lot to Emil Siekierczyński and Angel. Applause for them. Thank you for this panel. Okay, I think with this, our program for today is finished. It was really excited, really a little bit tired, because a lot of information, a lot of interesting possibilities were discussed today. But tomorrow, trust me, the program will be even more intense. I mean, there will be a representative from the European Parliament. We'll discuss different types of projects and opportunities for Bulgarian organization to giving better access to Horizon 2020. Of course, we'll have representatives from the 4th new established digital innovation hubs in Bulgaria, the cluster ecosystem. We'll, of course, joining here on the stage together with Center of Excellence, Center of Competences. So yeah, the program starting from tomorrow at 10. Again, the same format, but with much more information, much more people. Right now, for the people on site, I have one last announcement. The networking we announced that we'll be going on Chegene Skele. Unfortunately, we can't go there with the boat because the weather doesn't allow us, but there is an organized autobus that will take us all at 5:30 in front of the building. So a great network to everybody, and the people who are watching us, join us tomorrow also, because we promise you a great discussion also. Thank you a lot. Have a lovely evening. Bye.